say we have. Sweet. Awesome. We got the voice. We have, I think, probably most folks joining. I know there's always a big interest for folks to watch the video after, so that's why they RSVP. So let's just get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the MLUX meetup. Super excited to have you all here and super excited to have Sudheera here. She is the head of product management at Google AI, Google Cloud for Doc AI. And she's going to actually walk us through a case study of how to be a PM for a brand new AI technology. So I'm super excited. This is something that I'm super interested in, and we've been wanting a talk on this for so long. And thank you, Sudheera, for finding us and being like, I have a talk to give. That is awesome, and that is totally what we are all about. So I'm going to do a quick welcome and introduction, and I'm going to encourage you to either tweet or put your questions in the comments in the chat, and then we'll go through them afterwards throughout Sudheera's talk. Yeah, and please turn off your video and mute yourself for those who are low bandwidth, maybe like myself. All right, let's get started. So hello, hope you all are in the right place. This is MLUX, the Machine Learning and UX meetup, and we are super excited about our case study tonight with Document AI. I also, want to call out that, go back one. I am Michelle. I am the organizer and founder of MLUX. But as I mentioned, I have a full-time job at Google AI, and I am a senior UX researcher there. So this is just like my fun project, I guess you could say. And while I'm also a volunteer, all these other people are volunteers too, like Nikki and Adele, who are on the line, and a lot of other folks I saw join too. Just thank you so much to all the folks who make this possible and are amazing volunteers. I know some of you are also probably wondering, hey, what is MLUX? Like, that sounds cool, but this might be your first time joining, so welcome. How I like to explain it is, how do we use data and data science techniques to inform and drive UX design decisions? But also, how do we think about the inverse? How do we make better user experiences that help explain to the end user what's actually going on in the data, making the models transparent? How do people give feedback to these models and everything too? So I also want to say too, if you have never heard of UX, it is much more than just like visual design and like moving pixels around. It is all about building out the experience and thinking about like, hey, how is this going to fit into the ecosystem of the end user? So that could be interaction design, could be user research, all that stuff too, UX copywriting. And also data too. I've kind of just boiled it down to data in this diagram, but it's machine learning, it's artificial intelligence, it's data science, everything in between, looking at those tools. So when those two come together, it makes really cool experiences. This is one of my favorites. It might be a little bit glitchy for you, but it's the Pinterest visual search or visual discovery. And so what we're seeing here is like, someone scrolling through and then they automatically reseed the search by clicking on the lower right without needing to go back up and type in a new search in the search bar, right? Like that is so cool because it's using computer vision or tags to kind of figure out what are other similar things to that thing you just clicked on. So that is what we are all about. And if you would like so many more examples, we actually have written up an article about this, bit.ly/what-is-MLUX. Which kind of talks about some of our other favorite examples. So take a look, and we also link to some of our previous talks. So our vision as a group, as the MLUX meetup, is really to create a space to allow for a collaborative environment for UX, data science, PM, everyone in between, to come together and chat about best practices, ideas, case studies, and really help share those ideas about human-centered machine learning and other resources, because so many of us are working on this space and it is a new space. So how do we learn from each other about these best practices? And what we do is typically host like these types of tech talks where we dive deep into one case study or panels or something like that too. We have a ton of examples too up on our YouTube. And we also do semi-regular networking happy hour. We'll hang out after a half hour on the line if folks want to meet other people interested in MLUX. And of course, we are on Twitter, YouTube, BVM, and we write up all these things afterwards. So definitely take a look there. Like I mentioned, probably a lot of you found us through meetup.com/MLUX. Awesome. And we also have a YouTube channel, and we're also on Twitter. And as I mentioned, I've already tweeted out all of these links for tonight. So if you just want to go to our Twitter, MLUX Meetup. But really, MLUX cannot happen without you. We always are looking for sponsors and venues, maybe less right now in the time of like virtual events, but definitely when things kick back up again. We need people who like to give talks. Shout out to Siddhira for reaching out and being like, I have a cool case study that I want to share. Like, that is awesome. We need volunteers, no MLUX experience needed. So if you're interested in just like, you know, running our Twitter or something like that too, or making some artifacts, like all the visual assets, like the things you see behind me, that was all done by a volunteer, which is awesome. And if you see something cool and you want to share it with us, totally tweet at us. Please tweet at MLUX. Like, we love stuff like that. So definitely want to share it with the wider community. And if you are interested or have any further questions, you can either DM us or contact humans@mluxsf.com. I also want to shout out too that we are part of the larger Feminist AI Immutable Studios nonprofit. And Feminist AI is actually in the middle of a fundraiser for their 2021 programming. So they do amazing events like the Algorithms of Oppression book club with Dr. Sophia Noble, where they actually did live book club readings and interpretations with the Women's Center for Creative Work. And we also do tutorials. I just led a tutorial on how to make your own AI tone transfer, which is a project that I worked on, and so much more. We are all about trying to get more people involved and included in AI. And so definitely check them out. They have a bunch of cool free resources, and yeah, super excited about that. And also MLUX is a part of that family because we have the same mission of just trying to get more people to understand what is AI and ML and designing better experiences for everyone. And last but not least, I also wanted to mention that if you are interested in this, we are very lucky because tomorrow is the annual Paris Symposium. So it's all virtual, all free, all live streamed. It's cool talks. And so you can check it out, events.withgoogle.com. And I will tweet that out as well. So if you're interested. On that note, that is all that I have to say. Sudheera, I'd love to hand it off to you and hear your fantastic case study and just a little bit about your background. Yes, let me stop sharing. And we lost your camera, but we could see your tab.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. And I'm sharing my screen. Hope you're able to see it.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Siddhira. And as I mentioned before, I work in Google, in Google's cloud division, specifically the cloud AI and language and document AI group. A brief overview and to tell you a little bit more about my journey. I'm from India, and that's where I did my bachelor's in electrical and electronic engineering. And out of campus, I joined Yahoo, and I worked in various roles at Yahoo as an engineer and transitioned into product management through a hackathon. And also worked in a few e-commerce startups, also founded my own startup, realized that product management and building products is what I love. Briefly took a break to complete my MBA. That's where I got to live in 3 continents in 1 year, worked in Singapore as well. So right out of my MBA, I went to Amazon. That's where I first worked on AI as a product manager and got hooked. I worked on several AI products within Amazon Web Services, including Amazon MLUX and a few others again within the language space. Before joining Google, and at Google I work on quite a few products that you may be familiar with. Little bit more about what I worked on at Google leading up to the Doc AI case study that I'll be sharing with you today. So cloud translation, essentially Google Translate API may be something that most of you are familiar with. So this is a cloud-based version of the Translate API which supports SLAs, and essentially that Translate ML model that supports thousands of languages from Afrikaans to Zulu is available for enterprise customers. So you can translate text into text language. That's one product that should ring a bell. Some other products that I worked on are the Cloud Natural Language API. Again, all of these are examples of ML models that are packaged up as products and and essentially helping businesses to automate entity extraction or sentiment analysis, essentially classifying content within media companies and things like that. So the Cloud Natural Language API is also available under Google Cloud. AutoML is also something that most of you may be familiar with if you've been following some of the recent developments. What this product does is essentially enables citizen data scientists with limited to no machine learning expertise build ML models and deploy them within a matter of days. These models are simple and high quality with very little training data required. And then businesses can come in and essentially customize some of the ML models to their own use cases. An example of AutoML products is AutoML Translate, that essentially if you use the Google Translate API, there is one translation of driver, but then let's say there is a business that is referring to a driver in the context of a software driver is not working. AutoML Translate enables the business to train custom machine learning models so that they adapt to specific domains and refers to the right translation. So it's a higher form or a more accurate version of translation. So that's a brief background of all the things that I worked on at Google. But today we're here to talk about document AI, and I've found this as a great example to share to highlight how an AI based product can evolve from an ML model to solve real business use cases, and love to learn from the community towards the end of this what your key takeaways are. So here's how we'll go about this case study. I'll share the journey of how we at Google, and me specifically, from a product management standpoint, look at a business problem and then build an AI product to solve for that business problem. We look at customer case studies, some examples of how this is used in a media company, such as New York Times, and some document transaction companies such as DocuSign, and essentially take you through the journey of how a product is how a product evolves from ML to a Google Cloud AI offering. And towards the end, I also have some best practices that that I've put together. I've had conversations with my UX designers, and I'd love to get you the perspectives of the design community as you think about designing AI-based products. What are some key takeaways? So let's dive right in. Nearly all business processes typically include a document, right? So think about if you were buying a car, there are documents involved. If there are media companies that are looking at archives of documents and contracts, there's documents in there. So if you look across industries in healthcare, in financial services, in industrial manufacturing processes, there's always a lot of documents and paper floating around. And most of these businesses are sitting on these document gold mines. I'm referring to this as a gold mine because there's a lot of data that is trapped in these documents. Think about PDFs, contracts, emails, customer feedback that are so critical for voice of customer analytics, and businesses can learn a lot about their various insights from their customers. They can look at specific fields within documents and understand and unlock those insights to make better decisions. It's not just better decision making to unlock insights. Sometimes there's a lot of inefficiencies in processing documents, right? So there are a lot of humans looking at these documents, analyzing them over and over again, sometimes across various business units. There is a lot of redundancy in processing documents, and many folks looking at the same pile of documents. I'll talk about this a little bit more once we get into mortgage lending doc AI example further down this talk. But essentially, this gold mine of documents is only going to grow with time. The problem that we're looking at is that this is all unstructured data. 80% of enterprise data is still very unstructured. So think about the data that is in the form of tables, that is semi-structured. The problem here is that there are very few tools out there to process this unstructured data. The data analytics tools out there to process structured data are quite a few, but the tools to process unstructured data is where ML comes in. So this kind of data is human generated or machine generated. It could be physical documents, it could be satellite imagery. So essentially a lot of this data is very tough to process by traditional means, and that's where Document AI as a product comes in. It helps businesses turn unstructured content into structured data. As an example, here's a driver's license, and as you can see, we're able to convert that driver's license into structured data and identify that this is, for instance, an Ohio driver's license. So in a nutshell, what Document AI does is it extracts and classifies information from unstructured documents, and it unlocks significant value for businesses, because this type of classification and extraction is typically done by a human and across multiple business units sometimes. So there are some inefficiencies that can be weeded out of business processes if AI can handle it with a high element of accuracy. Another advantage that this product brings to various businesses is it can improve the customer experience, because now that the operational processes are optimized, there can be faster turnaround to enable a better customer experience. And also, for instance, if you use Document AI to process archives of documents or customer feedback that was typically not analyzed before, because you have AI to help the business process these at a much faster throughput. These insights can then enable the business to provide a better customer experience, and also essentially unlock better decision making for key stakeholders. So that was the business problem that we started out with. And if you look at natural language, computer vision, Google's knowledge graph techniques, all of these are Google's strengths in AI. Google's goal is to organize the world's information and make it accessible and useful. And Document AI essentially takes that philosophy to enterprise documents. We look to classify and organize the enterprise documents of the world and make it easily understandable with very limited to no input from enterprise ML data scientists. So this is an example of what our UI looks like. So I've taken a W9 document. What essentially happens within the Google Cloud console of Document AI is a user, a typical user could be a business user or a technical user, but we abstract the complexity out of training these machine learning models. using a combination of our computer vision, natural language, and enterprise knowledge graph techniques, we are able to essentially look at an uploaded W-9 document and highlight the key fields that are typically of interest to an enterprise. For instance, the address is identified as 145 Oversets Road. It is cross-referenced against Google Maps. So that entity is already verified and validated. The name Alexander Green has been extracted as a key value pair. Whether the form has been signed or not has been analyzed. So as you can see, this is typically done by a human, sometimes onshore or offshore. And using AI, we are able to get sometimes up to high 90s and analyze the document and convert this document into structured data. And the interface, as you can see, is quite simple, easy to understand, and essentially from a design standpoint, we aren't talking about ML anywhere within the interface itself. And models or ML models are not really first-class citizens within the document AI interface. The document or the business problem that we are trying to solve is front and center, and that's a key element of building AI products, essentially making sure that whatever is surfacing on the information architecture within the product is abstracting the complexity out of ML and making it a very user-centric experience. So here's an example of how New York Times uses our computer vision technology to process archives of documents.
First New York City subway in 1904. And there you have it. The morgue is what makes the Times the Times. There's 600 cabinets, a few thousand drawers, 6 to 8 million photographs dating from the late 1800s on till the 1990s. This is the Flying Hunters. This ran in 1930. George Washington Bridge, France's biggest naval ship, American soldier, greeting his mom, Christmas at Penn Station. I mean, there's pretty much anything and everything. The history of the world through the eyes of the New York Times. I didn't think too much about it at first. Like, yeah, sure, we have photo archives. And then I learned more about it. And there are millions and millions of photos down there that, except for like one person, nobody really knows what's hiding down there.
For every picture that we were able to publish, many never saw the light of day.
The more that I've worked down in the morgue, the more the real value and the real importance of having access to it dawned on me. The exciting thing about this project is the New York Times has over 100 years of photos locked in the basement. And this project will allow people to see photos that have never been seen before and make them accessible to the newsroom at the New York Times. When I first heard that there was a possibility of us digitizing this, I was really excited. So Google and the New York Times have had a partnership for many years. And we think it's actually an ideal partnership to leverage the power of Google Cloud's technology. What Google is bringing to the table is a lot of the infrastructure that the New York Times needs, as well as providing these sort of platform level services on the Vision APIs. First part of the digitization process is obviously the physical scanning of photos, getting them out of folders, getting them out of all these boxes, and physically scanning them.
So here's the front of the picture, but the back of the picture is just as interesting.
Stamps, handwritten notes, etc., that tells us something about the photo, who took it, etc. That is the data we need to extract.
These markers all over the back are the clues for where the picture was used. So here it was published in the newspaper at least twice. Here we can see the captions that were taped on the back indicating publication. And along this top edge, there's a number. That is the indicator of where this photograph lives inside the morgue.
We'll upload them into tools which will allow the photo editors to search the archive and bring up the images they need. Once we're done with this, it'll enable the newsroom to immediately access our entire archive from their desktop.
Once the pictures are digitized, I mean, everything old is new again.
We get the sense that covering current events is talking about what just happened, but having this resource available to reporters and editors gives them the ability to draw in all the context of what preceded, the wider world that led to this contemporary event.
There is nothing else, no other way of reporting what goes on in the universe that can do that the way a still photograph can.
The idea of telling stories in pictures is how society works now.
For Google, our job is to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. And in this project, we're helping the New York Times with their data to be able to do that.
All right, so that was one example of how New York Times uses our capabilities with AI and documents to process these archives. Here's another example of someone you may be familiar with if you've ever work with online contracts. So DocuSign is a household name when it comes to contracts, and essentially what DocuSign wanted to do was automate and identify all of the empty fields within contracts that need to be signed. So now in this example, Tamara wants Martin to sign a contract. So she sends this out, and all those yellow boxes out there are something that Google Cloud AI and specifically Document AI is able to recognize. So this is a cool problem for our ML to identify. So we've essentially helped DocuSign train on thousands of contracts and identified, essentially it's an auto tagging process where the contract has been tagged with where all of the yellow boxes need some user input from Martin. And without Document AI, all of this used to be a manual process. So that's an example of how a better customer experience can be provided by DocuSign or other companies by applying an ML-based product. So that while these are some examples from the media and the document transaction world, we have some really cool applications of Document AI emerging within financial services that I'd love to share with you today. As we launched Document AI, we started looking at some high-value business use cases, and lending is one of the highest value and document-intensive workflows in our economy. A typical loan package has anywhere from 300 to 600 pages. So what we at Google essentially did with our Document AI platform is we've essentially built specialized models focused on mortgage lending documents. So think W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, essentially everything that an underwriter needs to look at to approve a mortgage loan. We have built our Document AI models to essentially look at a W-2 and then convert that into structured data. So all of that translates into cost efficiencies for a bank. So now if a bank needs to approve a home loan process, it typically takes about 45 days for the paperwork to be reviewed and processed, and the approval process can drag on. With Lending Doc AI, we're able to automate a borrower's mortgage document processing, and that in turn translates into speeded up loan applications and faster closing times. That's better customer experience as well as higher operational efficiency for various mortgage companies, right? And this improves the experience not just for the borrowers but also for the lenders, because from sourcing to underwriting to writing a loan and then for a post-loan funding experience, the same mortgage packet doesn't need to be looked at over and over again. So that's an example of how an ML product can transform a business process inside out while making the customer experience better across the board. Another example of how Doc AI is helping transform procurement cycles is through Procurement Doc AI. Essentially, this is similar to the lending.ai example that I just shared, but applied to invoices and receipts. And you can only imagine across the board, invoices, receipts, POs. These are some kinds of documents that are omnipresent across industries. Every industry has, every company deals with invoices. So our specialized AI models within procurement.ai leverage our enterprise knowledge graph, and they normalize and validate this procurement cycle data. Again, the invoice ID, invoice number, the products, price, so on and so forth. So all of this is converted into structured data. So that eliminates human stare and compare jobs, and AI is essentially doing all of the reading and data capture, so businesses can crush paper out of their workflows. So that's in a nutshell how we went about building AI products, starting with natural language and combining it with computer vision, evolving it into a product called Document AI, leveraging the latest and best and greatest of Google's knowledge graph techniques to ground and extract entities from these documents, and then taking it a step further and applying it to industry problems such as mortgage processing and procurement lifecycle data. And that's essentially the power of ML. If applied right, we can package up ML models, find the right business use case, and apply it to optimize various processes. So I'd love to leave you with a few best practices and key takeaways before we open up for questions. Here are some best practices from a product management standpoint, and I'll speak to some of the best practices from a UX standpoint, given this is an ML UX community. So some of the best practices in terms of designing and building products which are ML based. Number one, ML doesn't need to take center stage always. What this means is always start with a business problem. Look at the problem holistically. So ML is a part of the holistic business problem and essentially the solution to the business problem. So depending on the customer persona, if you think your product is going to be used by data scientists, you would design it differently. But if you think your product needs to be used by a business analyst or someone with limited to no experience of ML, you would essentially work backwards from key customer pain points and build the product accordingly. So ML can be surfaced intuitively, and it can be behind the scenes with the main business problem. In this case, document processing was the main problem that the business problem that needed to be solved, and AI is essentially what happens to be the secret sauce that powers the system that takes the grunge work out of reading and understanding documents. So that's one of the first takeaways. The second part is when designing these ML products, you can abstract all of the complexity from the UX. The simpler the UX, the better it is. For instance, an example of the way the interface is designed today with the document-centric workflow is documents are first-class citizens, whereas if you look at another product called AutoML, models are first-class citizens. So in designing the information architecture, that's a key decision that we made to keep the interface simple enough such that business users can run with the product without even understanding or even referring to a term called ML model on the UI. So that's one of the key design tenets that we live by as a product manager. And finally, essentially, the business problem that AI can help optimize needs to be very crystal clear. So if you would think holistically, and let's say you have an ML model, wouldn't recommend starting from, okay, finding applications of where this ML model would be used, but then turning it around and thinking about business workflows that will truly be transformed using AI, and then figuring out what are some of the gaps that AI can help fill to gain a stronger product market fit. So most businesses shoot themselves in the foot when essentially they don't think about the problem holistically, or if we are building models first and then trying to optimize it towards business workflows. So these are some of the key tenets from a product management standpoint. Now, for our UX designers out there, a common question that I typically get is, and even for our PMs, do I need to know everything about neural networks in order to work in AI as a product manager or as a UX designer? So this is something that I had a conversation with my designer about, and he essentially said, well, I've watched videos and I've gotten a headache. I definitely don't need to know about neural networks. I don't need to know about how every algorithm works, how every model is trained, and what's going on behind the scenes. But designers need to know enough about ML basics to be dangerous. So what would be great is to understand how ML can help optimize business processes. So product management and ML moves quite fast. So all design needs to think about and keep up with is essentially remain grounded in the user's core needs. And it's a great challenge to kind of tie it all together from a design standpoint. So understanding what machine learning is and what deep learning is, and what are the basic steps involved in creating ML models. So knowing enough about the user's core needs and how ML fits in to solve the business problem or a product use case is all it takes to make an impact and build winning ML products. A cool example of another key design tenet is progressive disclosure, showing just enough information so that the UI makes sense, and providing enough opportunities to deep dive is quite critical. In the document AI case study that I just talked about, now there are business users that don't need to know too much about, what is the schema and the taxonomy of the documents and the fields that need to be extracted from the documents. What is the F1 score or the precision and the recall of the ML models? But there may be data scientists. So if your products have multiple user personas, you might want to optimize your UI to show just enough information to the right kind of persona, and then enable the power users to double click and deep dive on ML where it's needed. So that is a cool way to design your ML based products while still serving two different segments of your customers. And finally, each business is unique. ML is an evolving field, and every business presents its own unique environments. So providing some tools to allow each business user or each customer, for instance, to customize and build ML for their own unique environment and situation will be really helpful to scale your product to a broader set of customers and find a broader product market fit than catering to just a very small community of power users or a persona. So I think these are some of the key best practices that I would love to leave you with. With that, Michelle, do you want to go into some more questions? And I'm happy to answer any other key questions from the community here.
Oh my gosh, yes, totally. And we'll just have you continue presenting because we don't have that many more slides left.
Okay.
But thank you so much for that. I'm sure everyone's applauding, but we're all on mute of like, yeah, awesome talk. I know I learned a lot. Also, for all y'all who are interested, I've been tweeting a ton about all of the resources that Sudhira has mentioned, including that awesome, I love that New York Times example, as well as the DocuSign example too. So I found the Cloud AI blog about that. So I tweeted that out and everything. So definitely take a look. And thank you too for taking the time to distill those best practices for our community. I think that's awesome. So I do have some questions already. Of course, there was one that we get all the time, but we want to hear it from you. Like, especially since so many people were very excited about this talk being specifically from a PM. I think this is the first time we've had a solo PM presenting this. Does a PM need to know AI to work on an AI product?
I think that was one of the first kind of takeaways. Let me go back to that slide if that's helpful, right? Designers, do you need to know about ML? Do you need to know about AI? Or even for PMs, even how much do you need to know about AI and ML? So you do not need to know everything about AI. This is sometimes a black box to some of the designers that we work with, but knowing enough about the basics of ML. There are some great YouTube talks out there. There are some great blogs out there. So essentially, knowing enough about the basics is good. It's a nice to have if you are able to keep up with the latest and greatest developments in ML. But understanding enough to know how ML can be applied to various products or business use cases you're trying to solve is key. That's important for any product manager, essentially working backwards from customer problems and then figuring out what solution fits to solve for that business problem, ML based or non-ML based. So the key technology needed to solve for that takes less precedence over essentially making sure that the right product gets built. So I think that is key. Google in particular places more emphasis on product managers also being very technical enough to have conversations with engineers, have meaningful discussions in how the product is built and making key design decisions. What is important is to be technical enough to communicate with this team of hundreds of engineers working on the product vision and demonstrating enough understanding of their challenges. For instance, how data is acquired, what kind of training data is needed to build ML models, what is the right F1 score to hit so that these ML models are accurate enough to help businesses move the needle. So understanding the key metrics, understanding the process of building ML models is important. So I would say some basic knowledge is important, but not there's no requirement for a master's or a PhD degree in AI.
Awesome. I know that folks are interested for both the design, but like seeing you as a PM who also comes from a technical background, like, so thank you for answering that just a little bit, just know enough to be dangerous. Awesome. Another question that we had too, that was tweeted directly at me was, or also, yes, I see some of you putting messages in the chat too. And so we'll start answering some of those. But one that I would love for you to touch on is like, how do you actually work with data scientists or ML engineers? And like, how do you work with UX designers, researchers? What does being a PM for an AI product look like for you?
So that's a great question. So product management is a very cross-functional role in that it's sort of a general management role within technology where you know a little bit of design, a little bit of technology, and a little bit of business. So it's at the intersection of various domains coming together to build a product that is loved by customers or users. So in building these products that are AI based, essentially you work with ML engineers, software engineers, data scientists, UX designers, UX researchers. To give you some examples based on the products that we talked about, let's say there is, this is how the product life cycle works. So a product manager typically is responsible for validating the business case and determining, based on a top level analysis of the market as well as a bottom up analysis of various customers that the product is targeted at, and making a business case for what needs to be built. So once that business case is validated, there is a team of engineers that are going to work against that product vision. So now, as that product gets fleshed out, so once the business case is validated, the next question is what needs to be built in order to make that come to reality, make that idea become a reality. So that's where designers come in, and the product managers work very closely in this part of the product lifecycle with designers and UX researchers, and identify what are the key user journeys, the product, the customer pain points that we're out to solve, and then work backwards from those pain points to design a product. And that's when you get all of these mocks and wireframes. And following that, you have engineering teams working against a PRD, or a product requirements document, and working against key requirements or key user stories for how the product should behave in various scenarios. And the more validation cycles that you build early on, as you go from various launch stages, there is a preview product, there's a beta product, and then there's GA products. And that determines the maturity of the product, and it's an iterative cycle. So throughout the course of the product life cycle, product management works very closely with all of the stakeholders that you've mentioned, Michelle.
Awesome. That is so cool. And I know that there's quite a few questions about that process. So I'm going to ask you maybe a couple follow-ups, and apologies to, I'm going to try to like condense a couple questions down into one. But the question around like, how do you go through that iterative cycle? Like, what does that look like? How do you prototype these AI experiences to end up with like such a cool product, as well as like, how do you actually like, is there anything different about conducting the usability on this and everything too? And can you speak a little bit to that in your experience?
So that's a great question. So validation and iterating on various designs. This is a well-oiled kind of machine when it comes to Google, as you know. So you've worked in the UX field for quite some time now. So working very closely with your target personas, identifying key parts. Let's say you're working with mortgage companies. So we work with partners within the industry and understand the end-to-end workflow and build products to essentially to fit right into that workflow. So our UX research team really helps us identify what these user journeys look like. We essentially define MVP products that are kind of a V1.0, and then iterate from there, right? So identifying what the MVP needs to be, so that your entry point into the market is good enough. It needs to be something that is usable enough. It is an entire product on its own, and then you add subsequent features that layer on and build towards the entire solution is key. So I have a great image for that. If I can pull that up by the end of this presentation, I'm gonna share that. It kind of speaks to the philosophy of making sure that your MVP is a whole product in itself, and then layering on features so that it iteratively solves the entire business problem that each product needs to solve.
Totally. If you want to, after this talk, you could just ping it to me, and I'll put it up on our Twitter for folks to look at as well.
Sure.
That sounds great. And just keeping an eye on time, we have about 5 more minutes. There is a lot of interest around that progressive disclosure design that you were mentioning. Can you speak a little bit more about, like, what does that look like and feel like? Oh, and if I could ask you, could you just flip ahead to the Q&A slide?
Let me do that. This one?
Yes. Yeah,
oh,
perfect.
Great.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter, because we will be tweeting out the image that Sudheera had mentioned. But yeah,
Okay.
tell us a little bit more about that progressive progressive disclosure design.
Okay. So the design term here called progressive disclosure refers to essentially building for your user personas and surfacing enough information in the UI to essentially make sure that the user persona that you're targeting is not overwhelmed with a lot of tools that they're not really interested in, right? So an example of this is, let's say you have an AutoML model. It's essentially it is an AutoML experience. If you looked at Google Cloud, it enables businesses and customers to come with their own training data and click on train, and within a matter of 3 to 4 hours, customize a machine learning model. Let's say customize Google Cloud Translation to cater well to understand financial terms or domain-specific terms. Now, in that experience, you would assume that this is a citizen data scientist, but then with limited to no machine learning expertise. So the kind of precision or recall metrics or the eval metrics, like we'd say, that you would surface would be very minimal, as opposed to a product such as, let's say, CMLE, or a cloud machine learning engine within the AI platform, which expects the customer to have slightly more machine learning expertise. So they expose the model weights, and essentially there's more tuning that is expected by the user persona. So the progressive disclosure concept, if you extend to a different user persona, there are kind of other tools that you would expose to an ML engineer versus someone with limited to no expertise. So that's kind of the key philosophy that we've followed. Within Document AI, it's a business persona use case, so you would see no mention of models whatsoever. So that's not the first-class citizen. So that's, in a nutshell, some examples of how you would see progressive disclosure in action.
Awesome. And I love that you're calling that out too, that the model doesn't need to take center stage. Like, what is the user really doing? Like, we know that it's AI, it's ML, it's super cool, yes, but the user's trying to solve a real problem. And like, how do you actually do that? So thank you for pulling up that example of progressive disclosure to keep people like on task and understanding what's going on. Just in the interest of time, there are so many questions. I think this is awesome. I will also mention Siddhira has given versions of this talk before, which I'll also share, which go into a lot more detail than a 30-minute talk. So definitely go and check those out. I'll tweet out those right after this. But you know, while we have still like 70-ish people on the line or whatever, could you just tell us, like, we are all super interested in ML, UX, and like, how do we build better AI experiences for everyone? What would be like one piece of advice or guidance you want all of us to walk away with when we're, you know, excited to talk about our teams tomorrow at stand up and be like, oh my gosh, I saw this awesome talk. This is the one thing that I want to say. So
let me see. I think of all the takeaways, if there's one thing that I would recommend you remember, is is the fact that ML doesn't need to take center stage. I think that is one of my key tenets when building ML products. Ironically, ML can surface itself in very intuitive ways. To give you a very intuitive example, if you look at Google Photos, for instance, right? So it doesn't scream ML, but then it auto-organizes your photos. And then it surfaces moments that are meaningful. So that's one example. And if you take that to the enterprise use case, and I'm coming from the cloud world, so you'd hear a lot about business problems here. So the same philosophy applies to cloud and AI-based products. ML doesn't need to take center stage. It can surface itself to solve for business problems. ML just happens to be a technique to solve that business problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm totally going to quote you on that. I think that's awesome as a takeaway. And if you wouldn't mind, do you mind presenting for the last couple slides? And then everyone will have a social hour. And Sudheera, you're welcome to hang out too. But yes, thank you so much. Clap, 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 clap. Oh my gosh, awesome talk. I'm sure everyone is so excited. Yes, thank you for this case study. Sudheera, you should totally read through the great comments afterwards of everyone being so excited about your talk. But yes, like I had mentioned before this talk, we are part of the larger feminist AI community, and we are currently raising funds for our 2021 programming. And so we do free book clubs on like algorithms of oppression. I just did a tutorial on how to build your own AI, things like that. And to keep our programming free and to pay like our teachers who don't maybe work at Google, we want to be sure to raise enough funds to do that. And so take a look there, gofundme.com/feministai. And then one more slide. Do you mind clicking to the next one, Sudheera?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. The last thing that I want to say is if you are interested in People Plus AI, great news. It's a team out of Google. I think they actually use some Google Cloud examples in their pair guidebook. They are having their annual pair symposium tomorrow, and it's all virtual and it's all free and it's all live streamed. So if you want to hear about more cool examples of things like Sudheera works on, that I work on for our normal jobs, definitely take a look. Check it out, events.withgoogle.com/pair symposium. I'll also post that in our chat as well. And then the last one. Thank you for clicking through. I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Siddhira, for reaching out. Like you found us and we're like, oh, I have a really cool talk that I want to give. And I think that's awesome. And just thank you so much for your kindness and support. Thank you to all of our volunteers. I saw Amal, Adele, Nikki, Alyssa, like so many people on the line. So just thank you so much to all y'all who have joined and help us to continue to be this community. But also thank you to all of you for actually joining us tonight, because we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have an audience. So thank you so much again. And it truly has been a pleasure to learn from you and learn about your best practices and takeaways. It's not very often that you get to meet a PM who like has worked on multiple AI products and can like tell you about the high level takeaways. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and it's really great to see and interact with this community. Cool, insightful questions, and great to see your effort on this, Michelle.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, so if you would like to stick around, you're more than welcome to for the next like 25 minutes. I think Nikki is going to take it over to break us out into breakout rooms, and we can just kind of meet some other MLUXers, but also feel free to hop off the line and we could stop recording and we'll put it up on YouTube too. So thanks.
Thank you.